Saint Andrews Episcopal Church has been called the most photographed church in Alabama. Many simply know it as the beautiful rustic red church 8 miles out of Demopolis off Highway 80. The community has been identified by different names through the years: Macon, Canebrake, Prairieville, and today it is known as Gallion. Gwen Turner says Saint Andrews Episcopal Church ceased to serve the community before the 1920s. It is the property of the Diocese of Alabama. Members of Trinity Episcopal Church in Demopolis faithfully care for St. Andrews. Gwen Turner describes the early community.
From North and South Carolina and from Virginia, people moved in here and created a pocket of plantation society.
The first Episcopal church in Alabama was founded in Mobile, Christ Church, organized in 1825. But missionaries were dispersed across the state to help establish more Episcopal churches. On September 23, 1833, the Domestic and Foreign Missionary Society sent the Reverend Caleb S. Ives to Alabama.
But in 1833, a man named Caleb Ives, such a New England-sounding name, was sent as a missionary to Alabama, which had been a state since 1819, to try to locate a church. The Reverend Caleb Ives stayed in this area not much more than a year and a half, but he did make strides, and he saw there was every reason why there should be a church here, as well as a church in Demopolis. But he said he had too many daughters and too many debts, so he removed to Mobile and started a girls' school there.
Reverend Francis R. Hansen served as rector of St. Andrews from 1843 to 1873, except for a 4-year period. The construction of St. Andrews Episcopal Church began in 1853. Rector Hansen described the building as a handsome and substantial Gothic edifice in the early English style.
This church is not a restoration. This little church is truly a preservation.
The symbols and designs in the wood were the work of Peter Lee, a local slave who was an expert carpenter.
Peter Lee's work can be found all over the Canebrake. We have a cellaret at Bluff Hall, a house museum in Demopolis, that was made at Rodney Plantation by Peter Lee, and it has some of the same carvings that we see on the lectern there.
Gwen Turner says the interior wood was stained with a unique substance, and she wants to clear up any misconceptions about it.
Because I heard it told in later years, after I'd spoken to a group out here, that, you know those walls out at St. Andrews? They are stained with tobacco juice. We don't know how they got those people to chew all that tobacco and put it on the walls. So I must emphasize that this was a brew made from tobacco and very carefully painted on the walls. So the walls have been untouched all these years. This must have served as a preservative. We wonder what it does to our lungs. We know what it does to our lungs, but it must have been good for these walls. It gives that warm, mellow look, and that has been here since the time the church was built.
Many churches in 19th century America allowed slaves to sit in the balcony or gallery during services. But St. Andrews Episcopal Church decided to hold one service for the white population and plantation owners, then another one for the black slaves.
The black population of the Canebrake was far larger than the white population. Mr. Hansen would have his morning service here at St. Andrews, and then in the afternoon the church was packed with the slaves from the plantations. Several of the plantation owners had chapels on the grounds, and sometimes the mistress of the house would serve as teacher. But here, and I must point this out because there's a mistaken idea when people see the little gallery. They often think, oh, that's a slave gallery. Well, of course, it could never have contained the slaves. One man owned 360 slaves, so you can imagine what that population was. But the church would be filled in the afternoon with the black people. Mr. Hanson also presided at funerals and weddings quite often for black people on the plantations. Meanwhile, many years ago, the little parlor organ was given to the church by the owners of Rania Plantation so that we could have music. There's all the difference in the sound when the choir is seated in the choir loft. If you ever visited churches, say in England, they so often use the choir loft and the music floats out over the congregation. It makes us feel like we can sing.
Gwen Turner appreciates the love and commitment of many through the years to preserve Saint Andrews Episcopal Church.
I so admire the people who had the church built, who gave the ground, who tried to keep it going for so many years.